Hey guys, how you guys doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to watch this video. Before we start the video though, I would like you to please hit that thumbs up button, maybe the subscribe button if you haven't subscribed, and the notification button. Also, there's another button down there below it, somewhere maybe over here, maybe over there. It says join. You might consider doing that. I greatly appreciate it. Today we're going to talk about people switching from Windows to Linux and what they should know. All right. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk about diving into what it is that you should know about switching to Linux if you're somebody who's using Windows and you have questions about switching to Linux and you're just not sure what you should be knowing. So I'm hoping that this video will assure you that it is okay to do it. Before we start it though, I would like to say that the best thing that you could do if you're still not sure is to download a tool that is cross-platform. It works for Mac and Windows as well as Linux. It's called Ventoy. What that does is it creates a bootable USB drive and makes it like a bootable hard drive. And then all you have to do is download any ISO to that is, like a Linux ISO. Just go to distrowatch.com, find a distribution over there that may tickle your fancy. Download that ISO. They're usually about 2 gigabytes. Some of them could be up to 4, depending on how much stuff they put in it for you. Just drag it, and you put it right into that USB thumb drive that you created with Ventoy, and all you got to do is boot from that, hitting your F11 and selecting that boot device. You could literally test drive Linux before you actually install it. That is the best way to find out which distribution looks and feels like what you'd like to drive. Once you do that and you test it out and you see that it feels like for you and you can go with that, that's when you want to make the decision whether you want to install it on hardware after you listen to what I'm about to tell you. Now, the first thing we should talk about is the limitations that Windows has. The first one and the biggest one that I think that a lot of people already know about the limitations of Windows is the update situation with it. So the one thing that historically happened with Windows, as long as I've known, even when I used to use it way back in the day, is you get stuck in that update hell where you go to sit down at your computer, go to use it, and all of a sudden, bam, it forces an update on you. Linux will never force an update unless you click to install those updates. It just won't do it. It just does not happen. Also, every once in a while, for no reason at all, you would get a random blue screen of death. I mean, there was a reason, but normally it was no fault of yours. It was just some conflict with some code that Windows did that just kind of threw the machine off, and next thing you know, you're staring at a blue screen of death. And you had to find another computer to actually look up what that big ass number was that it would put out there, and it would tell you what it was related to. And then you got to hunt and peck, go through some white paper somewhere and find out what it was. Linux just doesn't do that to you for the most part. It breaks. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to lie to you. Sometimes Linux will break, but it's usually because you installed something wrong or you didn't do something in the right manner and a dependency got messed up. There, especially if you're on a rolling release distribution, which means that it gets frequent updates and you by nature want to keep hitting that update thing. You never want to get those updates right away. Let the test groups and all that kind of stuff, try them, let them get stable, and then you want to update. So don't, just because your system says updates are available does not mean you have to do the updates, especially if you're on a rolling release type distribution like Arch Linux or, OpenSUSE. I think Tumbleweed is their rolling release, because it could create a lot of problems for you. Stay with the long-term support kernel that doesn't get updates but every 6 months or whatever. So that is a piece of advice. Now, the other thing that we should know about Linux is that there's a lot of freedom in it. And a lot of people always misconceive that The freedom of Linux is meaning that it should be free of price. Now, that's not always true. There are some distributions out there that actually charge for what they do. And there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever because developers took the time to create this distribution, curate the packages for it, the software that's involved in it, everything, compile it, make it look pretty, and all that was taken out of their personal time. They, like anybody else, when you go to work, you don't go to work for free. You expect your boss to pay you. Well, when these people are putting out their donatable or their for sale version of Linux, they're not charging for Linux, the free and open source kernel and the software. They're charging for their time in making that distribution, compiling it, doing all the stuff that they did, their time. That's what they're charging for. But most of them are free. Now, the good part about that is that you also have multiple different type of desktop environments, which is the environment that you log into and that you see. Some of them look like Windows 7, some of them look like Windows 11, some of them look like Mac, some of them look like nothing that you've ever seen before. But nonetheless, there are multiple kinds out there for you to look, feel, test drive, and enjoy. You can get lost for months upon months upon months on end looking at different distributions and what they have to offer. This is true. There are over 600 Linux distributions. There's a great page you can go to called distrowatch.com. It does a great job of listing a lot of them. Don't believe the ranking order, though, because some of that ranking order is bullshit. Just quite frankly, it's just bullshit. But either way, that is something to know about Linux, too. You can actually look at the source code because it is open source and free in open source. So there's that. Another thing that you should know about Linux, a huge misconception from decades ago, but today not so much, and it's that Linux doesn't play well with hardware. That's kind of not true. That's ancient history, man. These days, Linux supports a vast range of hardware, from laptops and desktops, and even quirky peripherals nowadays, like some Wacom tablets and stuff like that. Used to never did, now they support it. Really, there's a few Wi-Fi cards that are mainly the Broadcom cards that do not work well, but that is a very easily remedied situation by buying a USB pluggable Wi-Fi adapter that is not made by Broadcom. And just plug it in. You can get them on Amazon for like $12, $11, and boom, you're connected to the internet. No problem. Just it detects it and it installs. The thing is, a lot of people don't realize too is you don't have to go like in Windows. Well, that's just one of the things that was a problem with it. So you'd have to go looking for a driver on the internet from some website, and you couldn't look at this driver to make sure that they didn't put any bloatware or malware in it. So when you downloaded it, you got all this extra garbage that was in there. You don't do that with Linux. Linux, the drivers are pretty much so they're baked in the kernel. You can get some proprietary graphics card drivers from AMD and NVIDIA and install them, but most of them are already installed out of the box in the Linux kernel, with the exception of the NVIDIA drivers. Those you're going to want to get in order to get the best performance you can out of your graphics card. And with AMD, you can get that, but you find that you get just as good, if not better, out of just the regular standard drivers, the AMD GPU Pro or AMD GPU driver that's already in your repositories. As far as any like printers or anything like that, it works with them anymore. Used to be Lexmark was a bear and you had to shop for HP only. Now Lexmark works pretty good. A lot of Epsons, they all work pretty good. So I mean, there's not a lot of anything holding you back there anymore, not like it used to be. Another thing to talk about with Linux versus Windows is you're going to get better security on Linux than you will with Windows. Windows is known and has a reputation for attracting malware and viruses because you are 9 times out of 10 reliant on having to go to some website somewhere to download a driver that's got all kinds of malware installed into it and bloat and stuff like that that will attract viruses and keep you on your toes with constant virus updates because you have to have an antivirus. Does Linux have viruses? It has had Linux, viruses written for them, but 9 times out of 10, by the time the virus becomes a prevalent action, it's already been found and patched. True. By the time that somebody has discovered this virus, it's pretty much already been found and patched because there's all eyes that are looking at the code all over the place. Doesn't matter what distribution you're on. There's a million developers looking at different codes. So that's kind of why it gets termed as being a fortress of digital protection. Is it fallible? Of course it's fallible, but it's a lot harder to be fallible. And even if it does become fallible, it's not for very long. So you could rest assured that the security measures to ensure that your system are much less susceptible to attacks that way. Another thing is there is a lot of control over what data is collected on you. Now, there are some Linux distros out there that do telemetry, but they're one, opt-in telemetry, not opt-out. Two, they're only collecting stuff on drivers. They're not even collecting any personal information on you. And like Fedora and Ubuntu do this, but Fedora is actually making, if you sign up with them and you have an account with them, they will actually make their data that they collect on you off your box, and you connect your box to that account, your computer to that account. They will tell you, and you can see literally what it is that they're getting, that they're collecting on you. You don't find that in Windows. So that is another thing that you have to do. Also, the file management system is a lot more safer than in the Windows ecosystem. It's kind of protected by an administrative password for your core system files. You just can't make those changes without putting that password in. Won't do it. Windows, you can change those all day long. They don't care. It just keeps happening unless they fixed it, and I'm not aware of it. But last time I used Windows, and that was with Windows 7, that was still an issue. They were trying to get some security for that, but it wasn't working very well. So next thing is the big thing. This is the biggest question that most people ask when they're switching from Windows to Linux, and it's regarding software and the software that I use to get through my everyday workflow or everyday home life. Well, used to be not so much, but now, again, it's more like ancient history, is software compatibility. You can play games on software with Steam. Steam has a client that allows you to play games. Also, you got Lutris, and you have different launchers that are already set with the compatibility layer of known as Proton that allows you to play a lot of Windows games. Easy Anti-Cheat is still bugaboo, but it's going to be here one day. It's going to be fixed. I have faith in the gaming community that they're going to take care of it. Now, what a lot of people should do, and what my recommendation is if you use X, Y, and Z applications on Linux, go to some of these Linux forums. You can pop into my Discord. You can pop into the Linux Cast Discord. You can pop into Zany's Discord. Any of these number of Linux Discords or forums or Facebook groups, or even the actual distribution that you're considering trying, their forums, and ask, hey, I am new to Linux from Windows and I used to use this program. Can somebody tell me what is a comparable equivalent to it? Now, I repeat, do not expect that application works exactly the same or looks and feels exactly the same as Windows. It will not. It's different. Linux is different from Windows. Windows is different from Linux. They do not play together, and none of their software plays together unless it's a cross-platform written piece of software that works on everything, such as Mac, Windows, and Linux. You will never get a Linux application to work on Windows. It's Linux only, and a Windows application that is Windows only to work on Linux. You can do it through a compatibility layer called Wine, but it's not foolproof. I don't want you to think for 1 minute that you can use the same program that you're used to using on Windows and it be foolproof. It will be buggy and may crash. They may have problems. But there are plenty of free and open source software applications. And it's simply asking in the right places, or maybe even just a simple Google search to find out which application would work best for you in your situation. So don't be afraid to do that. And have fun growing into a different possibility. It could be frustrating at first, but don't give up. You can get through it. And as long as the application, keep in mind, as long as the application can get the job done, then where's the harm in that, right? Because that's in the end what you want. So that's that for the software. The next thing that you get with Linux used to be hit and miss, Used to be a little rough on the edges because you had what's known as the RTFM guys. RTFM stands for Read the Effing Manual. And they would rather tell you that than to help you out with the situation. And 9 times out of 10, it was not because they didn't want to help, but it was because they were frustrated because you would get new to Linux users that would come into the space and they would pepper you with a million questions that they didn't try to problem solve first. Now, you may not know how to, and that is okay. If you didn't know how to problem solve something and you need to ask a question, then make sure that you lead with that. A lot of them forgot to do that. They would simply say, I can't get this to work. I can't get this to work. Somebody please help me. They didn't say, I have tried to do this. I've tried to look for this. I've tried to do this, but I couldn't find the answer. So I'm coming here out of desperation. Please help. Instead of saying that they, just making it seem like as if they never even tried to do anything. But the community has gotten a lot better with that situation, and they're more welcoming, and they're actually inviting of these questions. So you can come, like in my own Discord, I get lots of new to Linux users because the channel is very much associated with that, and there's nothing wrong with that. I welcome that. So if you have questions, pop into the the LinuxTube Discord server. Also, we have Matrix. You can pop in over there. I'm in there all the time, answering questions, and there's moderators and there's admins in there that help you out, and just regular subscribers are in there that actually enjoy hanging out and helping out people too as well. So you have a community and you have a Linux family behind you as well. That is another key thing that you will have in Linux. Now, one of the last and few things I want to talk about is Windows has always been known for making those boxes become obsolete, almost like planned obsolescence, when they really aren't obsolete. And you will never find that out until you actually install Linux onto that box or that laptop. It's really sad to think that that's what they do. They make you spend money on hardware that works perfectly fine. I cannot tell you how many times I have installed Linux on a laptop that I literally would take almost a minute and a half or a minute to open a web browser. And I do this. I wipe it, throw Linux on it, and that same browser, if it was Firefox or Opera or whatever, or Chromium, would open in the blink of an eye. I'm not joking. Being dead serious. For some reason, somehow, Linux or Windows has made you want to always upgrade. It's the nickel and diamond thing that they do, and they want you to upgrade your hardware and everything else because it's got to be compatible, and they're driving you to the TPM stuff and all that kind of garbage. Well, with Linux, you ain't got to worry about all that. Nope. Linux has very much so boosted performances and stays that way. It stays light. There are some distros out there that are bloated, that are kind of heavy, but still, they have better performance than Windows. You can outperform Windows with any distribution of Linux out there. I don't care how bloated it is. It will outperform Windows. That's a fact. So you get that added bonus you don't have to upgrade all this hardware you thought you had to. You could literally save that desktop instead of having to go out and spend $1,500 or $3,000 on a new desktop. You literally just wipe Windows, install Linux, as the sign says right over there. The sign says Linux wipes Windows in seconds. That's right. It really does. So the performance boost, that is bar none another saving grace. So kind of to wrap it up, because it's kind of gotten to be a little bit long, but I wanted to cover this stuff. Linux is something you should definitely explore and pursue if you're considering switching from Windows to Linux. It could be a game changer for you. Now, does it mean it's going to work for everybody? No. There are some people that just don't have the patience nor the time to either tinker or learn or any kind of learning curve whatsoever. If you get frustrated easy and you don't have that resolve within you to kind of troubleshoot, maybe do a little bit of problem solving, then I strongly suggest you to stay with Windows. That's just a fact. Or if you need the fail-safe of being able to go back to get your work done, and because you don't have all the time in the world to devote to learning that, then try doing the bootable live version that I said and play with that first for a while till you get really comfortable and stuff with it. If you break it, no big deal. You just shut down the computer and reboot, and you're back to square one, because it doesn't save any of the changes, and you're back to just like a regular standard thing. So try that first. Or if you just know yourself that if something breaks, you're just not going to have the patience to deal with it, then stick with what works for you. If Windows is working for you on that aspect and it's bearable to you, then stay there. Otherwise, feel free to try Linux. I mean, if you like to tinker, if you like to, troubleshoot some stuff on occasion, then yeah, no problem with Linux, because it does not stay unbroken. It can break sometimes, but so does Windows and so does Mac. Nothing is foolproof when it comes to coding and technology. Sorry, it's just not. So either way, take a leap of that faith and try Linux if you really really are considering doing it. You never know. You might become a new technically, tech obsessed Linux obsessed newbie and just enjoy it. That's what happened to me. Now, before we go, man, don't forget hit that subscribe button, man, and leave me a comment down below to tell me whether you're considering to switch to Linux, or if you have tried switching to Linux. What was your experience? If it was a failure, why? What was it that caused the problem? Maybe we can discuss that. And if you are experiencing an issue, maybe we can talk about that as well. Now, till the next time, man, I'm going to keep telling you to keep doing what you do. Stay safe, stay blessed, keep on Linuxing, and I'll see you in the very next one.